Hello, everyone. I'm Anthony Rainey, and welcome back to another Monday night with Matt, Subash, and me for Health Revolution. Tonight, we're going to talk about goal setting and what that looks like in the physical therapy environment, maybe what that looks like in our lives. What we have that is from a professional perspective, and hopefully, yeah, just have an open discussion, see what comes up. Yeah, what do you guys think?
I think that I am the worst person when it comes to goal setting. So I mean, I could talk about it a little bit, but in a professional settings, and I try to use it a little bit, but again, even then, like I feel like I slack a little bit. So I don't know. I'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm somebody who I definitely take action, but I tend to struggle with setting goals as well. I was saying, like, preparation for this, it made me reflect and realize that, yeah, I'm gonna start like setting some goals for this year. And what's a better time than the new year? The new year is upon us. So
And I think, like, I agree with you. I think this is a great time to learn for us, right? And also kind of help people going through new goal settings into a new year. So yeah, Anthony, how do you want to proceed? Like, I see that we have
Yeah,
our first questions. What do we know about
Yeah, I
goal
got some
settings?
questions prep, but maybe just what I was thinking. This just to give some direction, goal setting, being the beginning of the year, be a good kind of thing to think about. What type of goal settings do we, or what types of goals do we have? Maybe we can touch on like what is working with the patient. What goals do we have when we have a therapeutic relationship? What are our like techniques of setting goals? Maybe what do we learn about goal setting in general, maybe from PT school or so far from being in our new environments in the clinic. First
Uh,
question: how would you define goal setting in your day to day life as a PT?
I think that the word to me kind of comes as a measurable. It has to be something with measurable, right? And I think when I see patients and when I'm seeing patients for evaluations and things like that, right? I like to take objective data as much as I can to make sure that I can measure it and track it. And so the next time when we have progress, notes or revals or like discharge, I can talk to them about like, hey, look, this is what's going on. Um, and this is how much we made progress and all that stuff, right? But I think I've come to realize more so that like it what I when I find that like the measurable objective data is more applicable is like when my patients are like feeling down. Like for example, I had a total knee replacement. This man was impatient. Okay, this man was super impatient. Like we're at like 4 weeks. We're at 4 weeks, and he's talking about over there like I'm going to gym. I'm like I'm lifting weights. It's not. I'm not getting my knee extensions all the way already. Like it's like I'm still in pain. It's still swelling. I'm like it's not healing fast enough. So, and I'm like, dude, just just be calm, okay? Just be calm. And so when I was talking to him, it's so showing me like, hey, you see this right here? This is where we started. Right? This is where we are now, right? And you also have to kind of realize that when they, did the knee replacement, they cut you open, man. Like, look at this video. This is what they did to you. And knowing this and knowing, how your human body responds to healing time frames and how much you've improved, see this is what you're making. And so I feel like that's where like measuring objective data and having a goal towards is like far more applicable to me at least.
yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, like if we're talking about like physical therapy goals with our patients, I feel like a lot of it for me is a little bit like going through the motions, right? Like, you have X amount of goals that you need to have to kind of show to insurance companies what you're doing and like what you're working towards. But yeah, I mean, I always try to throw a few in there that are like meaningful to the patient. It's like, we'll return to X activity, but I could probably do a better job of at least communicating to the patient, being more like specific and like having it be more measurable, not just like patient will return to tennis pain free, right? Like we could probably be a little more specific with that, and especially in regards to like time and like you could probably break that down.
That's where I struggle, man. Like being specific. What do they call it? Like SMART goals have, say, specific, measurable, or actionable, whatever, right? And so
Attainable,
yeah,
realistic, and timely.
I think I'm definitely realistic, and I measure things. I'm objective about it. But when it comes to like specific and then like and all this stuff, like I struggle a lot. I feel like also the environment, like as a physical therapist professional trying to do this, I should take upon myself to be better at it. But it's just like I'm like trying to get through so many things, and I'm like, oh, I gotta write like 3 more evals. Like I'm not trying
Yeah,
to. I think it's like preset like goals that I've already created for range of motions or strength for walking and things like that. Just like dot boom, here it is for this many weeks.
Yeah, yeah. I think we all here would agree we've already spent too much time doing notes. So that's the constraints
I
of
would.
the current situations that we're in, folks.
I'd love for my goals to look like 100 times better than they are, but I think sometimes we can always take that like 1% and make it a little bit better. I think that like yeah, we see so you see so many people during the day, and to write patient specific goals takes time, and they do improve over time. And I think as physical therapists, we definitely get what's needed, and we're able to capture from for the patient everything that would be needed in that goal. Maybe insurances don't always love what we're doing, but I think that there's enough there, and then there's always room. There is room for improvement. I do agree.
And maybe it's the our field in itself. It's just environment just makes. I don't want to go there. And we know about it more, but I don't want to go there. I want to. I definitely want to like kind of transition this to our conversations towards like how we can um teach teach it to our audience more so than anything, like and see if we can like if we can talk about ourself as well because I feel like personally you guys are a lot better than I am when it comes to like goal settings and things like that because you guys have done it and you guys have accomplished, right? Like talking about marathon and half marathon doing that. Matt, you do it all the time with your weightlifting goals that you have. Like without it, it doesn't really work out, right? And so I feel like that could be very much applicable to our audience that's watching us.
I to gear maybe towards a patient and or to an audience. This would be talking to anybody, PT professionals or just people who maybe we see on a daily basis. I think it's helpful to talk about what types of goals, and I know we kind of started that conversation, but maybe to get more specific, why is and let's talk about like maybe short-term and long-term goals. I know if you guys um, got to read a chance to read the article that I shared. It was called "Goal Setting and Rehab: An Overview of What, Why, and How" by Wade DT. I don't have anything specific to quote from it, but I just thought it was interesting that they talked about how goals go are on a spectrum of short term to being more specific to long term goals to being very abstract or based on an abstract. As if a long term goal, what does a return to sport look like, or what does health look like? If that's the long term vision that we're trying to work towards. How do we get there with these short term goals? Do you guys want to break down short term, long term?
You could use it for any example. You could say, all right, 2025, I want to lose 60 pounds. Oh, yeah, yeah. I had a patient today. He said he wanted to lose like 60 or 70 pounds. I was like, okay. Like, and I said, okay, maybe we like can break this down into little like shorter increments and like maybe set it up to like maybe like 5 to 10 pound increments. So that's like a long term goal, right? His long term goal was to lose 60 or whatever it was, 60 or 70 pounds, right? That's very lofty. You're not going to achieve that overnight, you know. And not that I dug too much into this, but, I suggested, why don't you consider breaking that down into like maybe 10 pounds every, I don't know, 2 months or so. It's probably a little bit. So that goes along being more realistic, right? It's for the person, it's much more like I don't know. Like to me, that's very overwhelming, right? To try to lose 70 pounds, just
I
and like
think I agree with you, man. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like on being unrealistic, probably in trying to bite huge piece at once is probably why people struggle. And I don't know. I didn't mean to Matt, keep going.
no, that's good. You right because then you can collect like wins, right? Little wins. You're gonna build some confidence, right? If you meet, I'm sure there's the research in psychology supports this, right? If you start to like gain some momentum, right? You meet goals, meet goals, meet goals, and all of a sudden you're probably going to get closer to achieving that goal. Whereas if you just set it, oh yeah, 2025, I'm going to lose 60 pounds. It's like, all right, bro, how are you going to do that? And he's like, I'm just going to eat less. Okay. See, talk to you in a year. We'll see how you're doing.
Yeah.
I bet his goal would be in 2026 to be the same thing. Whereas, yeah, if you set it down to smaller things, more realistic, maybe you don't quite lose 60 pounds this year, but who knows? Maybe you'll lose 20 or 30, and that would be
Like
significant.
my thought went straight over there, and like knowing me, I'm like that. Right? I'm very motivated if I'm like I want something and I try to tackle everything at once. There's no long-term goals, there's no short-term goals, just tackling everything at once, right? And that makes it incredibly difficult. And I 100% agree with you, Matt. Like, uh, having that short-term goals of like, okay, so here, well, first of all, what is our big overarching, like purpose of what we're trying to accomplish, right? And so that would be our long-term goal, right? And then now, how can we make that better? Let's break it down. Let's break it down to smaller pieces. See that, like, and I'm a visual person too. Like, I can't just be like, okay, I don't know, man. I'm like, if we keep using the example of like losing weight, which I feel like there's so many things we can talk about that. But if we keep using losing weight, like, all right, I want to lose 60 pounds. I have written it down, and I almost kind of want to make like a roadmap. Okay. And I'm just like, okay, what are the steps can I take to lose 60 pounds? And so, but that's just how my brain works though now, like, because I know myself a little bit better. And like, okay, I'm going to this month, I'm going to do this things. And am I realistic? Absolutely not. But I know that this is what I want to do, and if I can't do it, which I think where people often struggle is like kind of giving themselves a little bit of grace. Like I wanted to do this, but I didn't accomplish it, and so they're hard on themselves, and then they just kind of lose their motivations. You know what I'm saying? Instead of saying, "Hey, man, it's okay. You tried. Let's move on to the next. Let's carry that forward to the next month, whatever." Right?
Yeah,
Roadmap.
yeah, and that's where again, probably setting more short-term goals is probably I don't want to say better, but I can see how it would be. Um, Again, you get that momentum going. You're not going to become discouraged and then give up, right? You're going to be even if you don't meet that goal. If you don't meet a goal of losing 10 pounds, maybe you lost 5. Well, that's a lot closer to 10 than it is to 60. So then you're going to be okay. Well, I was close. Next month, I'll try a little better. Maybe I'll lose
Yeah.
7 or 8 or whatever. And then whereas if it was 60 and you lost like 3 pounds, you're like, and you're probably going to give up, right? And
Mm,
quit. But yeah, I like your
a
roadmap
long-term
too. I like the
goal.
roadmap you came up with, Sue. That's a good idea. It's a good idea to map things out, and you got to think through, like, yeah, okay, how are you going to get there, right? What are things you can do pretty much at that moment or
Yeah.
in the short term to work towards that?
What was their goal long term,
I mean, it was to lose 60 pounds.
and why?
That's
To add on to that,
So
why did they lose it?
this was not clinically. This was just like conversation.
Sure. Okay. Did they disclose with you why they wanted to lose 60 pounds or
Um,
why that was a long term goal? Because if I were to play devil's advocate, I feel like pounds, like Lucy said, like there's a lot of things we could dig into with that. But I feel like that's a short term goal, or like it doesn't seem like a big vision.
are you getting at like what their why is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I mean, I can't say I sat there and was like, I didn't ask him why like 30 times. Like, well, why do you want to do that? And why is that? I can't say I did that, but yeah,
But I
I don't know.
think
I didn't dig
I think
into that deep.
that's a great question, Anthony. I think that we could kind of talk about it like factors impacting goal settings, you know, like, or like what makes goal settings easier or what makes goal settings difficult? What do you guys think? Like, what are the things that could like makes things a little bit easier? What has worked for you guys, and what are the barriers? Because I know myself, like one of my biggest barriers, like if I like something, I'm motivated. If I don't like something, you're not gonna get me doing it. Plus, also, I'm like very much like homebodied. I need to be home. Like I don't like going anywhere. Once I'm home, I'm home. That's it. Yeah. What are the factors you guys think that has helped you guys in your personal life or like with patients?
For patients, sometimes that's right. Making short-term goals that aren't necessarily the most objective and maybe easily written down, but like it might be easy to write down as a PT. It's not a goal that we would use, but like, all right, patient wants to lose 5 pounds. Like it's just like short term goal. All right, how do we get there? So like what we would do in like the clinic and what I like to do, I guess, if I'm setting goals for myself is like, yeah, what actionable steps could you take? Like your roadmap idea and like working on lifestyle habits and some of the other like what identifying low hanging fruit with the patient.
At one point, I was reading the book Atomic Habits. Like this was probably a year ago, and
Oh, that's
I
a good book. Action Q,
Mhm.
like
yeah,
action.
I would quote that a few times. Right? People
Yeah.
would. How can I increase my compliance with my home exercise plan? So there was some.
Man, man's about to show the book.
We all have it.
We all have it somewhere.
There was some good stuff in there, right? It was like how to get in like a habit formation, right? And like it was like timing, right? So keep your time consistent. You can use cues, right? Like you can have bring your gym clothes with you, or leave them in the same spot, or put them on, right? Then you're gonna be more likely to do the thing. There was some helpful stuff in that. Personally, like I think I'm pretty good with like fitness habit. I wouldn't even say I have like goals that I work towards in fitness. I just
Yeah.
I'm
Maintenance.
in that habit, and it's part of my lifestyle. I mean, there's plenty of areas in my life where I am not so good with setting goals. I think it's just like right, our life maybe it's not whatever aspect of our life is not where we would like it to be. Right, it's not in line with where we want to be. Right, maybe years ago you're like, oh, at 27 I'll be here in life, crushing this, doing this, and then here we are. It's like, oh, well, I'm not there. And I think the problem for me is like just getting like overwhelmed. Like you have all these many things where you're working towards. And again, maybe you don't have like that roadmap. Okay, maybe I don't sit down and have time and be like, okay, you're frustrated with this. What is something you can do in the short term to make a move towards building the life that you want?
You know, I well, like I can tell you for myself, it's a friction, like a barrier. It's like anything that like creates a friction, right? Like it's gonna steer me away from doing things. So I actively try to like remove those frictions from my life so that I can, get there and do things. Like for example, like being able to go to the gym, like I know that once I'm home, I have to travel like drive 15 minutes over there to go, and that's a big friction for me. And so I don't like going over there and driving. Like I said, I'm very much like once I'm home, I don't want to do that. But I have Megan that like helps me, right? And then the other thing is uh, like I plan things around where I'm right there. So my strength and conditioning thing, I'm over there. So when I'm there, I'm like, okay, well I'm already here. I might as well do it, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, but I think other things that like I kind of stood out to me, like when you guys were saying, and about like taking the time to think about these things. Like, I feel like that seems to be the big kind of consensus a little bit, taking our time to think about what do we like to accomplish, right? And how can we accomplish these things? Like, what is our overarching goal? And that's I know that in our personal lives we struggle with those too. So I don't know, maybe it's something for us to kind of work towards in 2025. It'd be pretty awesome to do.
You don't want to get too much in your head and like
Yeah.
overanalyze everything in your life, but I think there's value into taking a little bit of time and like, okay, you're feeling this way about this thing, sitting down and trying to figure out what might be going
I,
on.
I think
Right,
I've
like we're all
realized,
distracted, right? We're constantly on our phones, we're constantly on social
yeah,
media, we're constantly watching TV, and we're super busy, so it is hard
yeah.
to
I've realized one
have
thing, like I
things.
can tell you for sure that it's like I don't think we struggle with motivation. I, like I used to think that like my internal motivation, was not there for me to do things, but I don't think we struggle with motivations because I know the fact that you guys were able to do like, go do marathons and half marathons and you consistently like going to the gym lifting weights. That's that's not and like you when you want to do something, you guys have done it. You know what I'm saying? So that internal motivation is not really an issue for us, really. It's the fact that we don't really think about these things. I don't know if you guys would agree with me.
Yeah, I agree. This is where like that clinical relationship of like it's not a perfect science. A lot of these like our interactions with people on a daily basis, and no matter who it is, or everybody's complex. And for us, we know what barriers there are, but we know how to minimize those barriers to getting into like attaining goals, going to the gym, or going to learn something, or to try something new. But like with our patients, like it's so interesting that I mean accessibility for healthcare is already an issue. So for them to get into the front door is huge. And like I think it's really cool to be able to kind of have that opportunity to interact with patients. I have more to add, but I'll drop it there.
No, I think that's a great point, man. Like one of the things that like my our when we before we graduate we would write our paper whatever, right? And so when I was writing on accessible essentially like personal accessibility, like how does like inclusions of education of we were looking at a specific minority group, a transgender group, and how like it was saying like how does that relate to outcome. And a lot of the things that we found out from that paper was like really like there's so many barriers. Like they're not going to go seek healthcare providers if they're not inclusive. That's already a barrier, right? That's a big barrier. The second thing is like being a minority group, they don't have access to a lot of things like health insurance and things like that. Plus, they don't have support systems and things like that. So there's already so many things there stacked against them, right? And so I'm sure this happens with our patients too, like how you were saying. Something happens to them, injury happens, that's already a barrier, right? And that's taking them away from whatever they're doing things. Now they got to think about their health insurance, whether that's going to cover them. They got to go to their doctors, right? They don't know about direct access. Like they can come see us directly, but they don't know about it because we don't. Our profession don't do a good job explaining what it is, what our physical therapy profession does, right? And so they go to their doctor and they're like, "Oh yeah, you should go see a physical therapist." um we can't do imaging. They're like, and they come to us and they're like, does your health insurance cover your visits, right? Trying to figure those out. And then when they finally do cover it and they're like telling us, well, I just want to get an imaging, I don't want to see you.
Mhm.
There's so many things. So
Right.
I feel like, yeah, I mean, I went on a tangent, but
No, that's okay. And I want to draw it in because that's really good points. And I want to try to keep this as like less cerebral as possible. But I would like to talk about two models that we've learned and that we use in our practice as physical therapists. I think I might need to dig out some resources as far as references go. But so a lot of our goal setting is for insurance's purposes based on the World Health Organization's International Classification of Function Scale. So you got your impairments,
ICFs.
your activity limitations, and your participation
Yeah.
restrictions. So we set our goals in that. But that's such a limited scope, and like we can't just use that model alone. I feel like as a physical therapist, the place that I want to put my time and energy to make them have long term, to have a patient make like long term habit changes and benefit their health is like not just like maybe not focus on that solely, but look at health behavior change models. So like, is this patient somebody who's contemplating making health changes? Are they in an action phase? Are they maintaining? How can we play a role of guiding them or being present with them and through that?
That's a great point, man. Like I would agree with you. Like I feel like how you guys were saying, understanding whys and where they are definitely gives us a good idea of like how ready they are. Because I've understood that psychological factors plays a big roles on being able to change and make lifestyle modifications. Because a lot of the times people see us because there was something going on with their lifestyle, right? And so just needed some modification, some guidance, and that's what we were there
Mhm.
for. Because in reality, exercise is really, we know that not really going to solve a lot of things that they come to see us, even though we are seen as an exercise specialist. So yeah, that's a great point, man. I like that.
Because I feel like the health behavior model looks at addressing more of what are our barriers to achieving our goals and like what are our
Mm.
facilitators versus like just the IFC model alone is like, all right, what's your strength? What's your range of motion? What's your ability to squat? Are you doing what you're wanting to do? So it's like, I guess in the sense, that's all black and white, and that's what insurance needs.
Yeah, and that's what we were taught too. So like you can see, I mean, we know about other stuff, like, and they kind of briefly mention it, but it's very like, oh yeah, I see ya. And then
All right, anything else to add on that, or should I grab a new question?
no, I agree with you. I think that I don't know if Matt has more thing to add on to it, but definitely like stages of us being ready to change, whether we were even thinking about change, makes a big difference because we know for sure we've encountered people. They're like, yeah, no, I'm not going to change. Like I have a patient right now who's like, yeah, exercise is not going to help me. I need steroids. So like, there's nothing I can do. And he's like, I am 90 something years old. Like I'm not gonna bother around. Like you know. So
Yeah, yeah, that's tough. But you're right. Until he shows you a little something, you're probably not going to get much.
Any takeaways we could give for that? Like real simple, because like there's a lot of like deep stuff there that would probably need unpacking. But what do you guys think?
are you talking about my patient?
No,
Or
in
or
general,
just in
in
general, when people are like just like, yeah, I'm not gonna do this. I don't know, dude. I feel like you're kind of in this weird limbo because you want them to, and then there's a value to changing some of the lifestyle changes, right? But until they're ready to do it,
Yeah, I mean, one thought would be, not making it about like exercise or making it about being healthy, but you could then relate whatever activity or exercise you come up with them to do to that thing that they're coming to see you for. So that's where, yeah, digging in. That is where you play the why game a little bit. Okay, well, why are you coming? And then they maybe
mm,
share something, and then you can, okay, why is that important to you? And then maybe at that point you have enough information to say, okay, well, this exercise or whatever intervention, it's not about, getting healthy. It's about helping you get back to that. That's a
yeah,
thought.
I'm not trying to like be like, but like I obviously like as a professional, like I feel like it feels like it's my ethical duty to like understand and try to at the very least educate. And I feel like that's the best thing we can do at that point.
Do you guys feel that we are adequately prepared for goal setting um, after at graduation, or do you feel like we get the support from a in your current clinical settings? Do you feel like there's um, barriers to setting good goals, or do you feel like you get guidance? Is there anything that like you've found is helpful in improving goal setting?
Yo, I'll tell you, I feel like our school did a good job getting us to like learn about smart goals and things like that, right? And
Mhm.
they hammer you like this is how you write should be writing goals because insurance company and real world kind of takes that way. But again, like what we were saying earlier, it's just when you're in there, you're trying to write your documentations as quickly as possible, as as many times, like so you have some time for yourself. It makes it incredibly challenging. And so, what am I good at writing goals for my patients? Oh yeah, I think I'm good at writing goals. But does the environment allow us to do that? I don't know. Like now, could I have taken an extra, a minute or two to think about maybe better goals? Absolutely. But do I do it? It's so that's where it is, which kind of sounds really bad talking like that. You know,
I mean, it's real, bro.
it is. That's the real world, and it sucks that that's the real world. Like
Uh,
we need like a time for documentation. I feel like that's I as any healthcare providers that in the settings, I feel like especially for us because we have to justify everything. You know, literally everything down to a minute.
Rainy, I would say I definitely feel prepared to write goals. Um, I would say an area where we weren't as well prepared is just like the human psychology and like the complexity of these interactions and navigating that kind of stuff. And that just comes with repetition and we're all curious people here, so we all do our own like listening to podcasts, reading certain things that I think an area for me that I would there's a book out there about motivational interviewing that I'm sure I would benefit from reading. Maybe I should make a goal to read that book this year. um, but that's an area that I think I could improve on, and I'm sure many new grads. I don't know if I'm a new grad anymore. I don't know if I can use that term anymore. But when I was
I
a new
mean,
grad,
do you? I feel like. Sorry, I don't mean to go into this. This is completely different discussions of whether we consider a new grad or not.
there's definitely some gray in
Yeah. I still feel like I have that what is it, imposter syndrome, right? Even though we've been out for like over 2 years now, and I like today I was thinking about I'm doing an ACL rehab. What can I do better? Like, has my patient gotten better in the past? I don't know, man. I've seen so many people, like I've lost track of.
Yeah, for real. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say in regards to like health behavior change, I felt less prepared for.
Yeah.
But again, thanks to some people I follow or listen to, I feel like I've better than maybe I would have been if I hadn't been exposed, just based on the information from school.
I think there's a lot to unpack, and like to be able to do it in the time we had in the program. I guess like
Yeah.
they gave us enough. They inoculated us with like the psychology aspect of things, and I think everything is
Yeah, we talked
you
about
learn
like contemplative, pre-contemplative, all that good stuff.
right. I agree. I think yeah, I agree with you. There's so many good resources to be able to learn and understand like how do we like establish good goals for our patients or like connect with our patients so that we can understand what they need from us. I guess goals has never felt like a strong suit. That was something that I really struggled. I feel like with in PT school, and I get that we're we do adequate and we do like what's needed to be able to treat and care for patients. Um, but definitely an area that I feel like do better because yeah, we should have time to be able to like sit down with the patient and do goal setting. Like, let's talk
Yes.
about this. Like, what's your like? I mean, you learn so much as you go along, which I appreciate. It's easy to get stuck in a template of doing goals the same way over and over for insurance purposes. And then we kind of don't write down all of our goals. Like I think a lot of the really good goals that we come up with our patients and that we talk about are not the same goals that are being put in the documentation for our insurances.
No.
And that's kind of a gap that I feel like should be closed.
Yo. Obviously. Um. I have been really enjoying using like a AI to write goals, right? Obviously, I don't really write anything like an identifier, nothing. I'll just be like, okay, give me a goal for ACL, whatever, right? And then they write a really good goals, man. They go write a really good plans for me, and I just like, oh, that's awesome. So I write it down. I have been saving it on Manage, and I just like put it in there, and it's kind of has worked a little bit. So I don't know, like
That's cool.
future of technology that should be used thoroughly,
Hmm.
Chat GPT,
appropriately. But
baby.
It's almost scary because it's like, whoa, it's so new and like it's so big, but like it is so true, and like that should be used. That is technology that like needs to be incorporated, and that we need to like familiarize with.
I think that the future of documentation should follow towards um AI, like in a sense where you're not like breaking any HIPAA rules or nothing like that, but where it's assisting us to accelerate our writing process so that we can have more time with our patients. Yo, let's I kind of reel it
Wrap it
back.
up.
I think, yeah, let's reel it back, wrap it up, and then I think it'd be
I
good.
got a conclusion question, and if you guys are ready to close up the discussion, do you guys have any other questions or things you want to talk about?
Would you
I think
guys
it'd
want to
be
do like an example? Like,
That's where I was gonna head towards. I think I like how Anthony. I was thinking about it early. Maybe it won't be a good idea to do it, but like I think it'd be a
I was
great
even thinking
idea to.
I could role play. I kind of have an idea if you want to let me take the lead.
Go for it.
Okay. Did you want to say something first, Randy, though?
Oh no, nothing. Go for it.
Okay. So let's say I'm a patient, or no, let's use more like a fitness person. Like, well, we'll forget PT so much. So somebody comes in, they say, all right, they want to lose weight. What are some questions that you guys might like? What's some of your first questions you guys might ask? So they asked you, they stated their goal of wanting to lose weight.
What makes you want to lose weight?
Okay. So you're going to ask like their why.
I
Yeah.
would
Let's
definitely.
say they want to be healthier. They give you that example.
Great. I would encourage that. I'd be like, that's an excellent idea. Why? Like, trying to reinforce, right? That the reason behind it and taking it a little bit more positive rather than like body image. Because a lot of the times people would be like, I want to lose weight because this is what I see, not necessarily because of health reasons. So I try to like kind of emphasize that on the health side, right? And use that as a reason and say, okay, so let's figure out a way to let's make a roadmap, right? What is our overarching goal, right? How are we going to get there along the way, right? And then and after we make the roadmaps, what do you imagine yourself having in barriers get there? So those are the things that I would ask.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I was thinking is, okay, they want to lose weight. What if you dig into like, okay, like getting a feel for what they're currently at, right? Like, kind of like a bucket of need, right? You could say. So, like, let's say that there's somebody you'd want to ask, well, okay, what's your current physical activity, right? Maybe they're saying, oh, well, I don't do much of anything. Okay, well, that's one area that you can address that can help contribute to weight loss, right? Some other things would be obviously like right, like diet, sleep, stuff like that. So you'd want to probably dig into that. Again, this is like we're probably not doing this in the clinic. This is more with like a fitness
But we
client.
could we could definitely use that though, like in clinic.
Yeah. So I like your idea of the roadmap, but you just you probably want to be before you go there. You want to dig in. You want to identify like a potential issue, right? Identify what their biggest issue is, their biggest barriers to meeting that goal. Um,
Shout out clinical athlete.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And then one thing I did want to touch on, and I don't remember if I saw a social media post on this or a podcast post or even just like a conversation with a coworker. Um, right. We know the physical activity guidelines are what is it? 2 to 3 days a week of strength training and 150 to 250 or
That's
300
around
minutes.
that.
whatever. It's a lot of cardiovascular activity, right? Like, is it a good idea to tell somebody who's, let's say this patient is doing zero of that, they don't do any exercise. I mean, sure, they do some physical activity, but no targeted exercise. Is it a good idea to preach that model? Be like, well, the physical activity guy, like to share, to hand them a piece of paper that says that and then state that? Or do you think it would be better to be like, okay, why don't you just start like walking 2 days a week?
I think this is why like it starts to get a little bit more complicated because we are such a complex being, right? And so s- it, we and this also I think it's also a con at the same time where there's so many things you can accomplish, like so many things you can do, like you were saying, talking about like sleep, you're talking about diet, you're talking about like recovery, exercise, like exercise guidelines or whatever, right? And it could be very much be super overwhelming, and I could totally see it. And right, and so and I like what you were saying, Matt, like saying like, okay, well, let's identify the needs, right, and keep it simple. Let's address it, right? Which probably means sometimes just going for a walk. Maybe let's just start there, right? And then let's try to like build it from there, see where we go, right? So let's say if the short-term goal is to just to get us start walking so that we can accomplish our long-term goal.
Yeah. So okay, I had my goal. It was lose weight. We identified that okay, physical activity is not something I'm doing. That's like an area we can address. So right, we can make it more smart or whatever. So we said walking, right? So walking's gonna be the activity. That's specific. Measurable, maybe like 2 days a week is what we'll start with. So right, we'll go walk 2 times a week. Pretty realistic. And you want to set a time for it, maybe like what, 20 minutes? Is that 15, 20
Yeah,
minutes? It depends on the
but
patient.
yeah,
You can
yeah,
always
yeah.
ask them,
That sounded
like something I
reasonable.
always like asking, like, hey, what's a time that you know you could hit every day or whatever? What's a time that you know you could hit twice a week?
I like that. Like I like small goals, right? And I think that makes it like we were talking about like trying to like be specific, right? Like just kind of like really thinking about like how we're gonna do it. But the thing that I want to emphasize on is the barriers, right? Like saying like, okay, well, we identified this is how we're gonna do it, right? What do you see as a barrier that's gonna prevent you from accomplishing what we've just thought about, right? Sometimes I don't have time, man. Like I'm working 40 hours, right? 10 like 40, 50 hours, and then like I come home and I have to cook dinner, right? I have to cook whatever. Like, how can we incorporate? Because I know that's something that I struggle with. And so, how can we incorporate walking of 2 to 3 times a week for this many amount of hours? Like, what are the things that we can accomplish? So that would be I think that would be a good thing to add on to.
Yeah, of course.
Then I guess where you get into like, is it realistic? So like, you kind of have to dig into what are the barriers and facilitators, and like, if we already have if we find a goal that's attainable for them or feels attainable, we can then you can kind of match with everything else that's going on. Help them find like an accountability partner to help them make it feel more
Dude,
realistic.
I think that accountability is huge. If you're not like, I feel like a lot of people, and I know that in physical therapy, like I know I have like half my patient probably just shows up because, I'm that person that is gonna hold them accountable to do things that they need to do, right? And then we've kind of talked about how like, it's mostly like elderly individuals, but like I think accountable is like a huge part of that goal setting.
I like that. It kind of reminds me of Walk with Ease.
Oh yeah, that was
And
that
we
was
did
fun.
end up going over the physical activity guidelines, but it wasn't like a day one thing, which makes sense. Like there's a lot of stuff that is important in setting good goals, and if you're working with somebody to do that, that relationship aspect of things is like number one, and any of the factual stuff, like yeah, that's good to share at some point.
Another thing that like I think that of this patients that was coming or first client that's coming from goal settings like that wants to do this is that like I think knowing human body like kind of preparing them like of what to expect, like obviously as great as to know what to do and all being specific and all that stuff, like knowing that's like expecting what it may happen along the way of it also makes a big difference in goal settings too, right? Say that, okay, well, you started walking now 2 times a week and you've never walked before. There's a possibility of you being injured from there, or you getting tired, you being, more hungry, like, you being sore, right? And so there's so many possibilities of that could happen. So just being, this is what you expect. And if it does happen, here's how we can overcome it, right? And that could kind of follow through with every single steps of like overarching like weight loss goal. And
All
that's
right.
it. I think that's
I
a
got
good.
last question.
So some like take home points would be. I mean, I'll share like maybe mine, and maybe if you guys have anything to add, it's probably a good idea to, yeah, like set goals for 2025. I mean, we're not like huge New Year's resolutioners, right? Like making these massive changes. Well, at least I am. I don't know about you guys, but like, I think it's good to reflect on where you're at in life, right? It's good to reflect on where you want to go in life. This isn't just fitness, but in our case, it's health and fitness. Um, and right, so you can set these long term goals, right? And hopefully, through that example, you guys saw like, okay, you had that losing weight, but like, let's break it down. Let's try to identify what might be the reasons you're not at that point in your life, right? And so, right, you kind of identify the issues, and then right from there, can we make it break it down into something that you can do in the short term, right? This person, they can start walking this week. Right? That's took that long term goal and turned it into something that you can do right now in this moment. So that'd be my takeaway: is try to get things into actionable steps that you can do in the short term, right? Build the life you want to build by taking small steps, right? What is something you can do to move in that direction?
Build the life you want to build with what you say, Medisols.
Right. What is a small step you can take in that direction to
No,
to
I
get
like
you?
that code. That's good.
It doesn't
Anthony,
have
what
to
was
be
your
big, right?
last
It can
question?
be walking a little bit. So
Yeah. What was your last question, Anthony?
Last question. I figured to wrap up, and we could do some more takeaways if you guys want. But in one goal that you each have for Health Revolution in 2025, and thinking what's our vision, and what do you want to see come from it in yeah, our time together and what we're doing.
I I have many ideas, but I think the one thing that I want to accomplish this 2024 is that consistencies, right? And consistently like putting contents that are accessible to our audience. Like I liked what you guys sent it to me or like on the group that's saying like quality content to consistently kind of because like I know people tends to stray from like trying to follow you know the trends and all that stuff, but staying true to our mission. I think that's what I wanna accomplish in 2025.
I mean, I would say for me, I don't know. How about get one client to work with us, whether it's a rehab or more like fitness spectrum. So someone please sign up.
We already have one. No, that's a
No, it would be
but
to get a client that we can work with,
yeah,
and help them through their rehab to fitness journey.
I think that'd be pretty sick.
I guess I'll tail off that one, Matt, and then I have one other one, I guess, that's a little different. I want to connect with one person, or I hope that what we're doing connects with at least one person. And
I like that.
I
I like
think
that.
that I think that that's maybe could we aim bigger, but I just hope that like our vision connects with one person.
Bro, I think what we're saying like kind of connects to one another, and because like I feel like we're very much like similar minded to that, like and I don't see why it can't be a possible. And we can certainly work towards like think about the roadmaps, right? All that stuff. How can we do those things? 'Cause we definitely have to make goals for these. So it'll be a good practice for us. See how well we can do it.
The last thing that I have, it's a little bit different, is I'd love to share more research, make that more accessible for people because I think this is a cool platform to be able to do that. And there's so many good opportunities for us to learn and to be able to also then try to share that with other people would be great because that will help us work with our patients in the clinic. And I think it's a good skill to be able to develop in the online world.
Like I know that we have issues with online content creators because of how much BS they be saying out there. And so I think it'd be cool to how Mantini you were saying, like give some credit. Where is it coming from? Right? Not only the research and then also credit of like, saying that hey, this is what's going on. It'd be pretty sick.
That was from Chris Johnson. He had a pretty good email newsletter I read a couple weeks ago.
Chris Johnson's. Shout out to Chris Johnson's.
Thanks for listening, guys. Hopefully, if you have some goals in 2025, you guys can take something that we took that we said today and maybe help you achieve those. Make some gains this year.
Yeah, I've definitely learned a lot, man, from our discussion. So, happy New Year.
Yes.
Happy New Year.